Welcome to this week's Astro Edge Update. In these videos, I'm sharing my own research on astrological events, pattern recognition, and technical analysis. As we make our way through eclipse season, this week we have some strong cosmic events which may usher in some strong volatility. Let's take a look at some charts together. Let's start in the higher time frame and take a look at the S&P 500 on the monthly. As you can see right now, what we have is some healthy consolidation on the monthly chart. Price has bounced off the 20 EMA, and we could potentially be setting up a monthly cup and handle. Another option would be that if we don't hold the 20 EMA and we continue to consolidate further, we could see a tightening range well into 2024. Let's move to the weekly. On the weekly chart, we have a few things to keep in mind. First of all, let's take a look at this weekly falling broadening formation that we have. So this lower downtrending line has been really reliable bounce location on the lower end of price action. So we'll keep that in mind, but we'll see that this bounce gave us a rejection wick here as we return to the mean and even bounced off the 8, the 12, and the 20 are kind of coming together there. So let's drill down into the daily to get a closer look at what's going on. On the daily chart, which is really, I tend to focus on trading intraday and daily. I look for pivots that happen, once or twice a week, typically. And I use astrology and the movement of planets to give me high probability pivots. And then I trade using price action for my entries and my exits. So one of the things that I find to be the most useful is looking at the speed of the moon. So these lines here, you can see the red is the minimum speed. So that's when the moon is at the slowest. The tan line is when the moon hits a 0 point. So as it's transitioning from the slowest to the highest speed, it will hit a 0 point in between. And then the green lines are the speed maximum. So if you take a look at these, you can see that within 1 to 2 trading days, we oftentimes get a pivot. Sometimes they're spot on, and then sometimes they're a little bit off by, say, a day. But it's fine because ultimately I'm using price action as my primary technique here. And so I know that a pivot is coming when I see either the minimum, maximum, or 0 point lunar speed. So we see that on Thursday, October 19th, we do have a lunar speed minimum. So we'll be keeping our eyes out for a pivot on Thursday. However, this week we have some extraordinarily, I don't know if I would say extraordinarily. We have some strong cosmic events going on this week. Specifically on Monday, there is a potential move and pivot period with the moon void of course. The moon will be void of course for approximately 32 hours starting at 7:30 in the morning on Monday and lasting to the end of Tuesday, to the end of the trading day on Tuesday, roughly. Let's take a look at the exact times. The exact times will be 7:30 in the morning on Monday until 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's as the moon moves from Scorpio to Sagittarius. So when we have a long moon void of course period like that, we oftentimes see extreme volatility intraday. So I will be keeping my eyes out for intraday trades on those days. And so that will be on the S&P 500, our two key dates that we're looking at will be for Monday and Tuesday for high volatility. And then later in the week towards Thursday, we'll be looking for a pivot. And that could be within 1 to 2 trading days. All right, let's move on to QQQ. So the NASDAQ has this really nice downtrending line on the daily that has set up. And the NASDAQ's been stronger than the S&P 500. So, whereas SPY on the daily has not actually confirmed its uptrend with a daily higher low and higher high, we just kind of went straight up on the S&P 500. The Qs have actually given us a daily higher low and higher high for a confirmed daily uptrend. And we did, in fact, still continue to reject off of that downtrending line. While we had a strong pullback on Friday, Price is currently tapping the moving averages right there. We've returned to the mean again. So Monday, with that moon void of course period, we're going to see some extreme volatility. So that is what I will be watching for on Monday, is to determine if that's actually going to give us a pivot, which is possible. It's possible we see 2 pivots this week, one Monday, Tuesday, and then another one Thursday, Friday, depending on how price action plays out. I'll determine as we go. But these are the times to keep a lookout. Now the NASDAQ has an additional tool that I want to show everybody this week. This is something I just discovered last week. If we take a look here, these blue vertical lines are every time the moon passes by 2 and 3 degrees of Sagittarius. Because at 2 and 3 degrees of Sagittarius here, we have the inner wheel here is the NASDAQ natal chart. And the NASDAQ natal chart has Jupiter conjunct Neptune at 2 and 3 degrees Sagittarius. Interestingly enough, that was in 1971. In 1792, at the inception date of the New York Stock Exchange, we also have Jupiter conjunct Neptune, but it's at a different degree. But it's interesting that many years later, at the creation of another crucial instrument in the stock market, see here, this is the New York Stock Exchange natal chart. We've got Jupiter conjunct Neptune at 22 and 27 degrees Libra. So on the NASDAQ, I decided to take a look and see what happens every time the moon passes by 2 and 3 degrees Sagittarius. So each one of these vertical lines here is when the moon passes by 2 and 3 degrees Sagittarius. What I notice is that we have extreme moves. Specifically, the last 2 times this has happened, we've had very, very big moves. Big move here. This was a gap up, so the bar here is not that big, but it was a gap up, so that is a pretty significant move there. Again, here, these 3 light blue trading days are days when the moon passed 2 degrees Sagittarius on the weekend. And so I don't feel like those are tradable. And we would want to not use this tool when the moon is passing 2 to 3 degrees Sagittarius on the weekend. Then we get back to trading days here. And we had a fairly significant move here. It was a pivot low. This one, not quite as big, but then we're back to having mother bars here. It seems like mother bars are pretty common when we see the moon passing 2 or 3 degrees Sagittarius. So that is going to happen on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. So basically for the NASDAQ this week, we just have kind of a relentless one thing right after the next as far as geocosmic influences go. So we have the moon void, of course, extreme volatility period on Monday and Tuesday. That runs us into, for the NASDAQ, the moon passing by 2 and 3 degrees Sagittarius on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then Thursday, we have the lunar speed minimum and high probability pivot. So we have a lot to keep our eyes on for the NASDAQ. Next, let's have a quick look at the dollar. So on the left here, we have the dollar on the daily, and this has the lunar speed, minimum, maximum, and 0 point plotted on the vertical lines. And as you can see, the 0 point actually for the dollar is incredibly accurate. So we hit a 0 point lunar speed last week, and the pivot low came within 1 trading day of the lunar speed minimum, which is pretty common. Sometimes we actually pin the actual bottom, but typically it's within 1 trading day. And we see we don't have the minimum now until Thursday of this week. So we do have the high volatility period on Monday and Tuesday of the long moon void, of course, to keep our eyes out for. However, it is possible that the dollar is going to continue up or at least sideways until Thursday. If you take a look over here, we have, we can notice, first of all, that the dollar is broken out of the rising channel that it's been in since the pivot low back in July. So there's that. And now we're testing the channel again on the upside. But up here, this is a really cool thing that I've started doing, is taking the previous eclipse pattern, bars pattern, from the previous eclipse season, and then we put it here over the eclipse season for the current eclipse season. And I use the time trade software, gives you a lot of really awesome timing tools that you can just put straight on TradingView. So I just turned on the Eclipse season indicator. So this will just highlight for you so you don't have to do it manually, the Eclipse season. And so as you can see, the dollar actually of any of the instruments that I've looked at has held true to its replication of the bars pattern from the previous eclipse season most accurately. So assuming that we're going to continue to replicate this pattern, we can expect a move up for the next 3 to 4 days, which I love confluence because that's really what we're looking for here. And it matches with our pivot that we're looking for around Thursday of this trading week. Let's take a quick look at gold. Gold had a very predictable, strong move up last week. So if you were brave and you bought that low there, which I did, because I knew that the Mars is about to ingress into Scorpio last week. And then the other reason that I bought that just on a technical indicator alone was, let's throw the Bollinger Bands on here. And the gold had reached the 3 standard deviation to the downside. And that doesn't happen very often. So I'm trying to load the Bollinger Bands here and it's just not having it. At any rate, you can just take my word for it, I suppose, that we tapped here at the 3 standard deviation to the downside, and gold has a historical bounce point when it hits that point. So again, we saw confluence, which was a great entry. And then, as you can see, this is the day that Mars moved into Scorpio, and we had that enormous gap up 2 days later. This gives us this really beautiful reversal pattern here on the weekly. And I'd say overall, I'm bullish gold. However, I don't want to chase this move up here. I will be looking for a pivot, potentially a short-term pivot, at least on the daily, potentially even tomorrow on gold with that moon void of course period. Then we can look for daily consolidation, and assuming that it's healthy, we can look for an entry on a daily higher low. All right, let's take a look at Bitcoin. Here is Bitcoin on the daily. I mean, we could zoom out for a real quick second and just take a look. I think most of us know that Bitcoin has been going sideways for a long time inside this range. We are inside a weekly and monthly broadening formation. So then we can drill down here. You see the eclipse season is highlighted purple. This is the inverted bars pattern from the last eclipse season, and this is the upright bars pattern. What I found in Bitcoin is that there tends to be an alternation between upright and inverted bars patterns. And so far, the inverted bars pattern from last eclipse season has been pretty trusty. It's not a tick for tick replication, but it is a general pattern repetition. So based on that, I was looking for Bitcoin to come up a little bit early in the week. Actually, that started today. So we could see Bitcoin did have a little bit of a bull break on the hourly. It did invalidate that 4-hour bear flag that we had here. Let's take a look real quick at that. Here we go. So we now have a little bit of a 4-hour uptrend. However, I think what we have to be careful of is that on the 12-hour, we have just bumped into the mean, and we've formed a mother bar on the 12 hours. So oftentimes a mother bar is followed by an inside bar. So we'll want to watch for that. And then tomorrow we have the moon void of course period that begins in the morning. And so I love on the time trade software that I can just turn that on and it'll put it on my chart for me. And then I like to mark those levels for the moon void of course levels and use them to trade off of. And that would be a video for another day. So right now we have an hourly 4-hour uptrend. The 12-hour chart has just bumped into the mean here. And now we're going to just see how Bitcoin plays out for the rest of the week. Let's take a quick look at Nifty. Nifty has a weekly broadening formation, a daily broadening formation. And we have to be cautious here for the potential possibility of setting up a higher time frame head and shoulders. That if that happens though, what we would need to see is for this bounce to probably come up just a little bit higher. Maybe we top out somewhere around here, 19,990. And then we would come back down. And I do think it's possible that we have a lower side target here in this broadening formation. However, it's also possible that we hit the top of the broadening formation before we do that. So we just want to keep that in mind. On the daily chart, we do have patterns of higher lows and higher highs now, and we are just about to get the bull cross again of the moving averages. So we're just going to keep our eyes peeled for this week. Actually, I see here we've also got a potential inverse head and shoulders. Let's see if that looks more clear on the 12-hour. Yeah, so it looks like we tried to break up here, but then we kind of came back down. So we could come back down and test this level here, which would be 19,480. I do, however, think that the trajectory for the Nifty will be up at least this week, because if we go over here to the time trade software, and you can see that there's really not a high probability of a higher time frame pivot. We do have the lunar speed minimum to be aware of on Thursday. And then we have the high volatility period incoming on Monday and Tuesday. That's going to affect all the markets. So yeah, let's keep our eyes on Nifty and see what it does. Let's take a look here at the lunar speed on the Nifty. There we go. Let's see what we got. Yeah, so the minimum, here's the minimum here. The minimum does have a tendency to correlate with pivot lows, actually, for like a several day period, except not that one here, but this one, all the rest of them did. So I think we might take a look we might be looking for a pivot low here on Thursday, October 19th. Either way, the direction will be decided as we go into Thursday, so we can speculate about it now, but as price action forms, then we can make a more informed decision as we get closer to Thursday and Friday. All right, everybody, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great trading week, and we'll check in later.